The first statement is from Graham and Jamie Bird. Those are Derek's sons. We are utterly devastated about the death of our father, Derek Bird. To us, he was the nicest man you could ever meet. He was a loving dad and recently became a grandfather. We would like to say that we do not know why our dad committed these horrific crimes. We are both mortified by the sad events. We would also like to send our condolences to all the other families and the people involved in this tragic incident. Our thoughts are with them.
From our current indications, 12 people have lost their lives, plus Derek Bird.
We remember especially David Bird, Kevin Commons, Darren Rewcastle.
I love Cumbria. I'm a Cumbrian born and bred. And whatever happens here touches us all.
Gary Purdon, Jane Robinson, Michael Pike.
Everybody knows everybody. You know, there's been these victims right throughout West Cumbria. This has affected a lot of people's lives.
Kenny Fishburne, Susan Hughes, Jennifer Jackson.
You know, you can't understand it. Why? What snapped? Because no doubt something snapped.
James Jackson, Isaac Dixon, Jamie Clark. May they rest in peace.
What really happened on that sunny morning in West Cumbria? 12 people were shot dead, and another 25 shot at or injured. Eyewitnesses, survivors, family and friends pieced together the morning where small communities were left defenceless against a man running wild with a rifle and a shotgun. How did Derek Bird manage a 3-hour shooting spree in 3 separate towns? And why didn't the police catch him? Derek Bird had lived all of his 52 years in West Cumbria. After school, he became a joiner at the Sellafield nuclear plant. He married and had 2 sons. But in the early 1990s, his marriage broke up and he had to leave Sellafield after accusations of theft. He'd spent the last few years living alone and working as a taxi driver.
Derek Bird was a quiet guy. Kept himself to himself. You know, he's a nice guy. He's a pleasant guy. He's not violent. He's not overly aggressive. He just plods along, gets on with it.
From a decent family and in a decent and very beautiful neighbourhood. I was upset at the photograph that was put on the television at first because he looked like a thug. And he wasn't a thug. He was a reasonable lad who went about his business, apparently, in the right way.
So what was it that drove this reasonable, quiet man to turn on his own people in the towns and villages where he'd lived all his life? Friends claim a critical event in 2007 was to change Derek Bird's life.
A couple of years ago, he was involved in an incident at Moor Row. A couple of young lads basically did a runner. Ran out the taxi without paying a fare, and he chased after him. Unfortunately, he came out the worst of wear, and he got his head well and truly kicked in.
He'd been hit in the face, his teeth knocked out, and when he had gone down, he'd smashed all his skull on the pavement. There was a big gash in the back of his head. He had gone downhill. He'd started drinking a bit more, and I noticed on Friday gone, Derek, he didn't work on a Friday, and he was bouncing off all the walls in the town. He was drunk, and that wasn't Derek. And I spoke to him on Monday, and he said there's a few of the people on the rank sort of winding him up and that, and the guy could have done without it.
Tuesday afternoon, June the 1st. The taxi rank, Duke Street, Whitehaven. After weeks of trouble on the rank, Derek Bird is once again accusing other drivers of queue jumping and stealing his customers.
Well, all tech runs off the back of the rank. Somebody comes up to your car, you're supposed to send them to the front of the rank, but you don't. You just have to take them and wind each other up about it. You all do it, me included.
Bird decides he's had enough and makes a dramatic exit. Driving away, he's heard to shout at the other drivers, "There's going to be a rampage tomorrow."
Apparently he'd been down shaking a few of the lads' hands and saying, "I'll see you, you won't see me again." Well, as I said, we couldn't believe it, Well, you're going to say goodbye for him, you won't see me again, He knew then what he was going to do, didn't
he? Derek Bird drove back home. The rows on the rank came on top of months of worry about going to jail over unpaid tax. It seemed that for Derek Bird, it had all become too much.
Phase 1 of this incident began with the murder of Mr. Bird's twin brother David and his solicitor Kevin Commons.
It was still dark when Derek Bird left home. He drove 3 miles east to the village of Lampler. With a .22 rifle and a silencer, he knew access to his brother's home would be easy.
He never locked his doors of the night, and whether he would most likely go in the back door, I would reckon. And it'd be open, you see. In the back door, you're going through a back room, upstairs into his room. It was such a quiet night as well. He had a silencer on his rifle, so nobody would hear a shot, you see.
What had driven Derek Bird to kill his twin brother David? There was the matter of a £25,000 loan which David received from his father but was still outstanding. But if Derek Bird did resent this, it wasn't apparent to other family members.
The week previous, David and his brother Derek were up at the local scramble track with an off-road vehicle that David had just finished making. And they spent quite a bit of time that afternoon driving round and round, laughing their heads off, like you would expect warm brothers to do. There wasn't any underlying reason or anything brewing.
Well, I've known them all my life, since they were born. And I've watched them grow up since they were just babies. Just unreal. I mean, you can't believe what's happened. Just cannot believe what has happened.
The feeling of shock and horror. There hasn't been words written yet to describe that feeling of emotion.
After killing his twin brother, Derek Bird returned home and carried on as if nothing had happened.
He'd been seen about 9:30 washing his car outside on the front. On the road.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Washing the car?
Washing his car.
At 10 o'clock, Derek Bird set off to kill his brother's solicitor. He knew where to find him. Earlier, he checked out his farmhouse and had been seen hanging around by Iris Carruthers, who'd known him since her school days.
I seen Derek coming down from the farm in his taxi. And as I passed him, he had his window wound down the car, and I just said, "Hey, lad, are you all right?" Because obviously I knew Derek had been at school and that, but he didn't speak. He just carried on, and I left him stationed in front of the gate in the lane on the dip road. I just thought he'd been to the farm to drop somebody off. We'd been in his taxi, and never thought nothing more about it, yeah.
At 10:20, Derek Bird shot dead Kevin Commons. But he didn't use a silencer. Gunshots were heard and reported to the police. As they were heading towards the sound of gunfire, Derek Bird was going directly past them in the other direction, into the busy town centre of Whitehaven, and he knew who he wanted.
Shotgun was sort of down in a position like that, and he was sort of looking around. He looked like he was hurrying a bit, but he also looked like he was looking for someone as well.
This is CFM. Mostly fine and dry today with highs of 22 degrees. I'm Giles Taylor in this...
On the morning of June the 2nd, Derek Bird has already killed 2 people, his brother and the family lawyer. Now the taxi driver is heading towards Whitehaven town centre to kill his colleagues.
The second phase of his shootings took place between 10:30 a.m. and 11:35, a 45-mile rampage across West Cumbria.
Former Marine Commando Darren Williamson is in a Duke Street shop and hears the sound of gunfire.
There was 2 loud bangs, 2 really loud bangs. Looked out of the shop window. Seen there was a guy on the floor, lying down over there on the floor, just behind the bins now. And I was still a bit confused in what was going on. We've seen a taxi driver as well, sort of coming out of his taxi. He looked like he was sort of like scrambling around his taxi. I don't know if he was getting out of it or trying to get into it. And we were like, what's going on here?
Bird's first target is Darren Rucastle, one of the drivers he'd accused of stealing fares from the back of the rank. He shoots him in the face and he's killed instantly.
Darren's Darren. Everybody knows what Darren's like. To single him out, well, you know, he did it often, but he wasn't the only one that did it.
Well, as far as I know, they got on, because everybody gets on with Darren because he's a character. You know, he's the number one wind-up merchant. Everybody gets on with him.
Started sort of walking over, and round the back of the taxis, that's where we've seen a guy run round with the shotgun. His shotgun was sort of down in a position like that, and he was sort of looking around. He looked like he was hurrying a bit, but he also looked like he was looking for someone as well. That's when I realised that oh my God, something terrible's happened there, you know. And there was also a taxi driver sort of getting out of his taxi, like he was staggering around his taxi. Don Reed, that was.
Taxi driver Don Reed is shot in the back, but says he wasn't deliberately targeted.
All I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, and then, I say, he just banged and got me in the back, and I was flying, and that was it, so.
I mean, I've been to Afghanistan, Iraq, but places like that, if you see someone with a gun running around there, you know there's a problem. You've seen someone running around in Whitehaven with a gun, you don't realise what's going on.
A call came into police at 10:33 reporting shots fired on Duke Street in Whitehaven.
Getting reports that at least one person has died. With all the latest, here's Hayley Brewer.
Well, you don't expect this sort of thing in Cumbria, but police were called to Duke Street just...
Heading away from the rank, Bird pulls over when he recognises another taxi driver, Paul Wilson.
Well, I've come around the corner. We're on Scott Street now. Police station's up in front of us up the top road there. Basically, my own is this. Got my documents to do. I got to be about here and heard my name being shouted. I've looked over and there's Bird in his car, so I've basically just walked over. I've ducked down to look in the car and bang, shot you straight away. Didn't know it at the time, but gust of air across my face, and you know, I've been shot, and most of the pellets have ended in the wall behind me.
And a gentleman comes up to me and he says, "Are you all right, mate?" And grabs me by the shoulders. And I says, "Yeah, I'm fine. It's just a mate of mine shooting blanks. Just been adopted. You know, I'm all right. Don't worry about me." He says, "No, mate. He's bloody shot you." And as I'm looking at him, I'm going, "What?" And I could see in the background a police van with lights and sirens flying past me. I thought, if I've been shot, why is the police van not stopping? You know, you think, well, if you've been shot, the police would be right there. You instantly pick up your hand and put it on your face, and the whole hand was just red. The whole hand, and you know, when you cut yourself, you maybe a little bit of blood, but no, this was a lot of blood all over my hand, and I'm looking at my hand and, okay then.
Paul Wilson is rushed off the street into the control room at Whitehaven Police Station, and he tells them who the gunman is.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine, it's Derek Bird. I know who it is, it's Derek Bird, you know, and they're all amazed that I knew him.
The police have named and issued a photograph of a man suspected of being involved. He's Derek Bird, who's 52 and from Rowra near Frizzington.
Somebody said, "Oh, it's Derek Bird. It's a taxi driver." And I said, "Oh, no, we know the lad. Surely he hasn't been shot." And then they said, "No, I think it's him that's done the shootings." And I said, "Oh, never."
Most of the local police are 5 miles out of town at the first reported murder, but one officer commandeers a local car and gives chase to Bird. Soon, a police transit van with 2 other unarmed officers joins the pursuit. The 3 unarmed police officers chase Bird for a quarter of a mile. Then they witness his 4th shooting in Whitehaven.
You hear the radios and you hear a shooting Coach Road.
Bird has recognised a 4th taxi driver, Terry Kennedy, travelling with passenger Emma Percival in the front seat.
I just seen the 2 barrels coming out the window, and as I turned, I just heard a bang, and the window, the taxi's side window smashing, just shattered everywhere. The taxi driver didn't know he had been hit till he turned around and looked at me, because all his blood and all his flesh was all over me. And then I just took my seatbelt off and just jumped out the taxi, because as he had shot at us, this policeman was following him in a car, and he jumped out the car, and as soon as they see me taking my seatbelt off, he told me to jump out that taxi and run. I was in so much shock. The only thing I could do was run to a police officer, and then I can feel something running down my arm, and then I took my jacket off, I looked, and I was like, oh my God, I've been hit myself.
But seeing the taxi driver and his passenger had survived, Bird shapes to fire again.
The man with the gun was turning around to come towards us again, but police had blocked him, so he couldn't get back to where we were at. So he gets his carry on driving straight up.
Bird speeds off. After tending to the 2 injured people, the police renew their chase, but are now several minutes behind Bird. Bird's already reached the next major junction, and faced with 3 choices, takes the centre road up towards a housing estate. When the police get to the same junction several minutes later, they have to choose and go straight on, along the main road out of town. They've lost him, but Derek Bird knows the chase is on. The next thing he hears is from the police. Paul Wilson has given Derek Bird's mobile phone number to a police officer.
And the officer who wanted it basically ran off into the back room. About 5 minutes later or so, he came back in and I asked him, was it a current one? He says, yeah, good number, thank you very much.
They were trying to call the killer on the run.
Yeah.
The police have his number, but they can't find Derek Bird. He's on the B road from Whitehaven to St Bees. His next target is the village of Wilton, but he knows he can only reach it cross-country through the market town of Egremont. And by now, it seems he's prepared to shoot anybody. At 5 to 11, Barry Moss is cycling along the St Bees to Egremont Road and comes face to face with Derek Bird, standing by the side of his taxi.
He just stared at me, and he just had a very blank expression. I mean, he didn't look angry or cross, or he didn't say anything. He didn't do anything, really. But I didn't think I looked at him for very long, because my eyes were just drawn to this huge telescopic sniper rifle he was holding. I mean, it looked so heavy. Even though he had two hands like this, it was pointing down at the ground. And I say, he never pointed it at me. I didn't even think it was a real gun. But then he just sort of scurried very quickly, got into the car, closed the door and just drove off down the hill into Egremont. It was only when I looked back up the hill that I saw there was this body slumped on the floor that had been behind the van, the taxi. And I saw that she was just lying there, essentially fully on the pavement, facing down the hill. And there was 2 bags of shopping that it just looked like she'd put down or dropped. It was obvious that she'd hurt herself, Well, it looked like maybe she banged her head or scraped her head, and she was unconscious. And then someone ran out of one of the houses and just shouted, "There's a madman on all those Hume people." And I think it was only at that point it suddenly clicked in my mind anyway. Oh my God, that's what this is.
Susan Hughes, a 57-year-old mother of 2 grown-up daughters, had been shot dead. She was the first person to be killed that Bird didn't know.
Susan was from the heart. Not just in her work surroundings, but in her home surroundings, around her family. She thought the world of her family. Susan would never say a bad thing about anyone, or anything, to be honest. That void will never be filled.
I mean, I didn't know Susan Hughes. I had no clue who she was. But it was only when, yesterday, I think, my partner saw a picture of her on the television, and she suddenly realised who she was. And she's the mother of one of the people who she dances with in her troupe. She would have been dancing with her just 3 days ago, and it's just, it's connections like that you just have no concept of.
Bird heads out of Egremont town centre and across this bridge over the River Ian, where he shoots another person he doesn't know. Kenneth Fishburn, a retired security guard from Sellafield, spent 25 years in the army and was once a United Nations peacekeeper. He is shot dead just yards from his home. The terrifying reality is that the gunman is now running wild and prepared to shoot anyone.
Crucially, in this period, Bird was firing shots out of his vehicle, moving from place to place, and was not in any one area for a significant length of time.
A few hundred yards further on, Derek Bird sees Les Hunter, who's leaving a friend's house.
As soon as I was on the main road, a car pulls up and just says, "Can I see you a minute, mate?" So I said, "Aye, no problem." So I stepped off the curb to go towards him, and as I did, I looked in the car and I seen a shotgun lying across the passenger seat. Well, I thought that was queer for a kick-off. But I mean, as I went closer, I was about 5 foot off it by then, he started to lift the gun up. Well, I knew something was wrong then, and I just turned away as quick as I could. And he fired one shot, which went past my head, and it just, a burning sensation, pellets hit me in the face. They're healed up a bit now. And it was a loud bang, and near deafened me. And as I crouched down further, he fired the other barrel, and right in the middle of my back. And I've still got the 29 pellets in me back. When I got shot and I went on all fours with the second shot, the pain, I've never had pain like that in my life. That was very painful. He was as calm as anything.
Bird heads south out of Egremont and next sees 15-year-old Ashley Glaister, who's out running an errand.
I was coming down from the shop and he was coming across this way to go up the corner when I was coming down, and then that's when he put up beside me and he said something, so that's when I went over to the car and he said, "Do you like something?" And I said, turned around and said what to him, and then that was when he was pointing the gun at me, and then I ducked down, and then that's when he shot and I felt it go past my hair, and then I ran down to my sister's crying and he shot again while I was running down to my sister's. When I was running down the road, all I was thinking was, why me? Is he going to kill me? What's he shooting at me for? I haven't done anything wrong.
It's 11 a.m, 5 people are dead and many others injured. and Bird is heading for his next target, a tiny village off the main road. All available armed officers are now chasing him.
42 armed officers from Cumbria were deployed on this operation.
But Bird knows the back routes. He's well ahead of the police. Soon, he will be spotted when this camera captures him speeding away from another shooting. Wednesday, June the 2nd. Police are chasing Derek Bird, a 52-year-old grandfather who's so far shot dead 5 people and injured many more. The former Sellafield joiner has lived all his life in West Cumbria. Now he's shooting local people, including his brother, the family lawyer, and his taxi driver colleagues. Police have no way of knowing the bizarre reason for Derek Bird's next target. Bird is a keen deep-sea diver, but has had a fallout with his instructor. He's now heading down backcountry lanes to the instructor's home in the tiny village of Wilton.
Crucially, in this period, Bird was firing shots out of his vehicle, moving from place to place, and was not in any one area for a significant length of time.
On his way to Wilton, Bird drives past local farmer Norman Sherwin.
What I first seen, I've turned in the lane end with the tractor. I was coming slowly down the lane, and a car came speeding round the corner from that direction, straight along this way, identified it as a taxi with no windscreen, and a very evil, very sort of madman driving looked straight at me, never forget his face, and he came speeding past me, looked straight at me and kept going. I thought somebody'd upset that guy, as if he'd been run off the road or something like that. Somebody that was in a foul mood and thought nothing more of it at that time. Because usually you get a wave off drivers or whatever just on these country roads. But he didn't, just right past me at a great rate of knots. Well, after he left me on this track, he turned right and went a few hundred yards up over the brow of the hill, and Spike Dixon was walking his dogs, going to look his mole traps, just walking along the verge of the road, and he just pulled up and shot him. Simple as that.
65-year-old Spike Dixon, well known as a local mole catcher, had become the 6th person to be killed by Derek Bird.
I mean, Spike was a good pal once over, you know. I mean, he used to do a lot of hunting, and he wouldn't have harmed anybody. There's no streak of badness in him.
A guy I went to school with, I grew up with. He was at my wedding. I was at his wedding. Good friend, seen him most days, catched balls. Just good guy, countryman, friend. Died 200 yards up the road. For no reason. No reason at all.
At around 11:05, Derek Bird reaches Wilton, the home of his deep-sea diving instructor, Jason Kerry. Bird creates a noise outside the house, but no one comes out because the family dog is barking loudly and needs calming down. Seemingly frustrated, Derek Bird turns away and heads up the road. He then shoots the next people he sees, Jennifer Jackson and her husband, James.
Known him since perhaps I was 20. Did a lot of social things with him. We went to the All Blacks match. Jimmy Jackson, great guy, a witty fella. And he was a guy who devoted his life to the ambulance service. He spent a lifetime saving lives. And then he's shot on the roadside for no reason. Absolute waste of a great life. She was a church-going lady. I think the secretary for the church. Just a lovely lady.
It's now around 55 minutes since the police first heard of the shootings. They know several people have been killed, but incredibly they have no idea where the gunman is. Cumbria doesn't have its own helicopter, so they have to call one in from neighbouring Lancashire.
Police and RAF rescue helicopters were drafted into the area and a massive land and air search began. Our overarching focus during this period was protecting the public of Cumbria and locating Bird.
By now, Derek Bird is back on the main road, speeding past his old workplace, Sellafield. The nuclear reprocessing plant is locked down because of the gunman on the loose. After failing to locate his diving instructor in Wilton, he seems to have no clear sense of direction, so he heads towards the nearest built-up area, Seascale. On the way, he reaches Gosforth, where at about 11:20, he sees a man trimming this hedge. Gary Purdom was 31 and a father of 2, a successful semi-pro rugby league player for Whitehaven.
Gary played for us for a long time, played over 100 matches, and he was really an exemplary player. Everything about his character, his commitment, his discipline was first class. He was known as, an automatic choice in the team when he was playing at his very best, and really an example to young rugby players nowadays of the sort of standards that you need to meet.
Gary Purdom becomes the 9th person to be killed by Derek Bird.
He was a man who gave people respect. He had a lovely, calm disposition, a wonderful temperament on and off the pitch, and a wonderful sense of humour.
At the next Whitehaven home match, Gary Purdom's widow Ros would release 12 doves, each a symbol of the 12 people killed in West Cumbria on June the 2nd.
Armed police are looking for a man with a shaven head driving a dark grey or silver Citroen Picasso. The registration number is ND55Z.
With 4 people dead in the last 18 minutes and reports coming in of more shootings, police helicopters and vehicles are combing the area. But Derek Bird will kill 3 more people in the next 15 minutes. The first is Jamie Clark, an estate agent, new to the area, shot dead driving along in his smart car.
Jamie Clark. He'd moved to Carlisle and his partner was a school teacher. Only 23-year-old. Grand lad. I couldn't believe it when I seen his photo. He was just at the wrong place at the wrong time.
After shooting Jamie Clark, Bird continues into Seascale. He's about to crash into this Land Rover, picked up on CCTV at 11:26. It's driven by local pub landlord Harry Berger. A gold Suzuki, driven by a mother with a child, is on camera as 2 shots are heard. Local builder William Hogg comes out to investigate the noise.
Yeah, so I came out here, and I looked at that way first to see if it was coming from there, and I realised it was coming from that direction up there, up near the railway line, and I also thought the gunman was up on the railway line and taking shots off there, and so I walked up there to see what was going on.
Just 15 seconds later, Derek Bird is caught on camera racing away from the scene in his silver Citroen Picasso. David Moore, a retained firefighter in Seascale, is pottering about in his greenhouse when he hears a commotion down the road.
I heard a helicopter coming overhead, and I was looking out towards the village when I heard 2 shots. I have to say, at this point, you start to get a little anxious. I know that there's an incident occurring. I know there's been gunshots fired in Whitehaven. I'm now hearing shots in my own village. Helicopter, but at that point my alerter went, and I then went to my vehicle and went to the fire station.
Those shots are at this railway bridge close to the seafront. Harry Berger has been hit in the shoulder. He is very badly injured, but is still alive.
We've got blankets and stuff if you want to.
He had severe gunshot wounds, and he was in a lot of pain, and obviously as we come to remove him, he was shouting a lot, and that was causing distress to a lot of people. We removed the side of the vehicle, and we took him out of the vehicle and took him into the shackles off here, which was open, and they offered us these premises. We were able to take Harry in there and made it into a makeshift clinic. They just got him into the warm and the dry where we could keep him until such times as we would get support to remove him to hospital.
26 seconds after Bird's Picasso has passed the CCTV camera, there are 2 more gunshots. They are heard by a woman who comes out of the house. 100 yards up the coast road, Bird has shot dead Michael Pike, aged 64, who had been out on a morning bike ride.
He was a good fella. He was happy, and he's all around us really. He built the walls in the garden. We've got his railway in the garden. His favourite spot to sit. He'd come up here every morning and drink his cup of tea, round about where I'm sitting now. So he'll always be here.
He was a person. He liked people. He liked helping people, and he was very good at helping people. Other people was what made Mike tick.
Harry Berger, the man in the Land Rover, is airlifted to hospital. He's lucky to be alive. Moments after the death of Michael Pike, Bird kills Jane Robinson. She was 66 and out delivering catalogues. Shot yards from the home she shared with her twin sister.
I was the village milkman for 40-odd years. I knew all these people. Jane and her sister Barry have been in the village. They've been here all their lives. You know, very ordinary people. They didn't interfere with people. They just got on about their own lives and did their own thing. Would never have done any harm to anybody. They were, really well-liked people. Well, this community has lost people that gave back to the community, and, that can never be replaced.
The CCTV footage shows that after Derek Bird drives through the town, it's a further 7 minutes before 3 police vehicles are seen in pursuit. The 2 Volvo Estates and a 4x4 are well behind him. He will fire his gun 6 more times, and there will be more serious injuries. Although roads are now being closed, the police are still a long way from catching the Cumbrian Killer. Cumbria police are still chasing Derek Bird. He's already killed 12 people, and he's now heading east into the Lake District National Park, packed with holidaymakers in half-term week. The police still can't find him, and now they are telling members of the public to get inside.
A police car came into the village and with tremendous urgency said, "Get off the street, go in and shut your doors, there's an incident."
I got near the road end, and there was 9 police cars in a loading. So I thought then, and the policeman threatened us and said, "Stay."
I wasn't actually terrified, but I began to get slightly anxious when the helicopters were swooping down over our back lawn here and in the front of the house, and I realised that they were sort of combing the area for someone.
Armed and extremely dangerous, a gunman is on the loose in the Lake District after a series of shootings which some reports suggest have left up to 10 people dead.
The story has now hit the national news, but the police and their helicopters still can't locate him. But he hasn't finished. On a 2-mile stretch of road, there will be 6 more shooting incidents. Bird has shot at a campsite where over 80 tents and motorhomes are packed with families on the half-term break. He injures 4 more people in separate random shootings.
Well, I went another 20 yards up the road, and there was a woman with the side of her face blown out and a hole in her leg. I got farther up the valley, after the police cars had come back up the valley. Got to Brooke House, and they were going mad wanting an ambulance because one had been shot through the mouth and through the back of the neck, and it shot her in the car.
It's now around 12:30, more than 2 hours since the police first knew there was a gunman on the loose, and the tiny village of Boot is about to witness the final acts in the life of Derek Bird.
By this point, we were incredibly close to him, and officers surrounded the local areas and blocked off all escape routes. There was a county-wide containment operation in place with armed police and helicopters.
Nick James is on holiday with his girlfriend, driving along the country roads near Boot, when he sees a silver Picasso taxi heading towards him at great speed. His is the first of 3 cars in a line, and the road is just too narrow for the Picasso to pass safely.
As he was approaching me, I thought, this fella's not going to slow down and there's no way he's going to get through this gap. So at that moment in time of maybe right decision, I decided to edge my car right up against, take the chance to put it against the wall, pull my wing mirror in, and as he was 20 yards away, I just said, "You stupid sod, slow down."
I just hid my head in my hands and thought, if I'm going to die or get hurt, I don't want to see it happening to me.
And within a split second, there was 2 thuds on the side of my car.
The first one was poof, and then the next one was really like a grinding sound. And I thought, oh God, what's happened to the car?
On the main road, coming up the valley, he'd tried to pass the car, and he'd hit the wall. The stones had gone through his tyre, and you can tell the marks down the main road, the black mark, when his tyre's been going down. And when he's got down to here, his tyre came off up there, about 20 or 30 yards up the road, and he's come along there, all on the rim, and he's stopped there.
All in a split instinct, another car coming in the same direction that Derek Bird was pulled up beside me, asking, had I seen a taxi? And I said, yeah, he's just hit me. I said, we think he's pulled him round the lane. He said, well, he's just shot my back window out and injured my partner. And at this time, Jonathan, who had gone off his own back to see if he could catch you, who had crashed into my car, came running back to say that he's abandoned his vehicle, but there's all guns and bullets in the car. And at this time, we thought, something's not right going on here.
Derek Bird has abandoned his taxi less than a quarter of a mile from Ralph Jackson's farmhouse.
We walked down the passenger side, and the passenger side window, not the main window, but the frame window was broken. It had no glass. It had been broken.
It is understood that he has now abandoned his car and police are hunting him in the remote Central Lake District.
Derek Bird is now on foot. The last two people to see him alive, a mother and a daughter, day trippers, have their own lucky escape.
He'd met two people that was coming over the bridge, and he'd said to them that he wasn't going to hurt them. And then he'd gone down the lane and into the wood and shot himself.
At 1:30, the chase is finally over.
My officers and I are absolutely determined to get to the bottom of why this happened. However, it may not be possible to establish all the answers because we cannot speak to Derek Bird.
The family puts no blame on Derek. They knew Derek for 52 years. There was a new Derek for a few hours of last Wednesday, and the two things were very separate in the minds and memories of the family.
By early afternoon, taxi driver Paul Wilson is in hospital being treated for his injuries.
As it turned out, the whole ward were gunshot victims, all shot by Derek Bird. And it wasn't until you're in hospital and you're meeting fellow victims that you realise how big of an impact this is. And, you know, just everywhere you go, oh, there's another one, there's another one, oh, there's another one.
There was something wrong with him. There's something that was there that's made him go like that. Because a few weeks ago I was in his taxi and he didn't seem like that, he was fine. But as the weeks have gone on, there's something there. So he's probably had a mental breakdown or something.
You don't expect something like this to happen. If he wanted to shoot himself, go and shoot himself if he'd been out the way, but to go and take innocent lives, it's unreal. You know, you can't understand it. Why? What stopped?
I was really cross because I thought this woman for me is dead, but all these other people are dead, and the name of Whitehaven is now forever ruined. You know, if you talk about Whitehaven now, it's always going to be in Columbine, Dunblane, Hungerford. It's never going to be. It's a lovely place to come and see, and you know, and this guy has done that to all these people. He's changed everyone's lives here. You know, from people who have lost loved ones, but even rippling out past that.
I can't hate him. The guy that shot me, the guy that's done, you know, these 12 murders in his own suicide, the guy who's injured all these people, the guy who's basically just dramatically changed his community, isn't the guy that I know, isn't the friend that I know, isn't the colleague that I know.
It hasn't really sunk in yet. As I speak for the rest of the village, community, the whole damn country and beyond it. It'll take a long, long time for it to sink in. But time is a healer, and that's the only way that we can view it at this stage. We've got to look forward and think positive and let time do its healing, to come to terms with it. You'll never forget it, but it's about learning to come to terms with it.
I've lost 4 good friends. I'm going to have 3 funerals next week. I mean, my loss is nothing compared to theirs. I just feel as if I've got away really light. I'm just speaking to you because I think I'm looking my grandkids to see it, and I think it should be known what great people have been taken from us. Terrible.
If you've been affected by any of the issues raised in this film and would like more information, please go to channel4.com/Cumbria.
was such a quiet night as well. He had a silencer on his rifle, so nobody would hear a shot, you see.
What had driven Derek Bird to kill his twin brother David? There was the matter of a £25,000 loan which David received from his father but was still outstanding. But if Derek Bird did resent this, it wasn't apparent to other family members.
The week previous, David and his brother Derek were up at the local scramble track with an off-road vehicle that David had just finished making. And they spent quite a bit of time that afternoon driving round and round, laughing their heads off, like you would expect warm brothers to do. There wasn't any underlying reason or anything brewing.
Well, I've known them all my life since they were born. And I've watched them grow up since they were just babies. Just unreal. I mean, you can't believe what's happened. Just cannot believe what has happened.
The feeling of shock and horror. There hasn't been words written yet to describe that feeling of emotion.
After killing his twin brother,
The first statement is from Graham and Jamie Bird. Those are Derek's sons. We are utterly devastated about the death of our father, Derek Bird. To us, he was the nicest man you could ever meet. He was a loving dad and recently became a grandfather. We would like to say that we do not know why our dad committed these horrific crimes. We are both mortified by the sad events. We would also like to send our condolences to all the other families and the people involved in this tragic incident. Our thoughts are with them.
From our current indications, 12 people have lost their lives, plus Derek Bird.
We remember especially David Bird, Kevin Commons, Darren Rewcastle.
I love Cumbria. I'm a Cumbrian born and bred. And whatever happens here touches us all.
Gary Purdon, Jane Robinson, Michael Pike.
Everybody knows everybody. You know, there's been these victims right throughout West Cumbria. This has affected a lot of people's lives.
Kenny Fishburne, Susan Hughes, Jennifer Jackson.
You know, you can't understand it. Why? What snapped? Because no doubt something snapped.
James Jackson, Isaac Dixon, Jamie Clark. May they rest.
And wind each other up about it. We all do it, me included.
Bird decides he's had enough and makes a dramatic exit. Driving away, he's heard to shout at the other drivers, "There's going to be a rampage tomorrow."
Apparently he'd been down shaking a few of the lads' hands and saying, "I'll see you, you won't see me again." Well, as I said, we couldn't believe it, you know. Well, what are you going to say goodbye for and you won't see me again? You know. He knew then what he was going to do, didn't
he? Derek Bird drove back home. The rows on the rank came on top of months of worry about going to jail over unpaid tax. It seemed that for Derek Bird, it had all become too much.
Phase 1 of this incident began with the murder of Mr. Bird's twin brother David and his solicitor Kevin Commons.
It was still dark when Derek Bird left home. He drove 3 miles east to the village of Lampler. With a .22 rifle and a silencer, he knew access to his brother's home would be easy.
He never locked his doors of the night, and whether he would most likely go in the back door, I would reckon. And it'd be open, you see. In the back door, you're going through a back room, upstairs into his room.
Way.
So what was it that drove this reasonable, quiet man to turn on his own people in the towns and villages where he'd lived all his life? Friends claim a critical event in 2007 was to change Derek Bird's life.
A couple of years ago, he was involved in an incident at Moor Row. A couple of young lads basically did a runner, ran out the taxi without paying a fare, and he chased after him. Unfortunately, he came out the worst of wear, and he got his head well and truly kicked in.
He'd been hit in the face, his teeth knocked out, and when he had gone down, he'd smashed all his skull on the pavement. There was a big gash in the back of his head. He had gone downhill. He'd started drinking a bit more, and I noticed on Friday gone, Derek, he didn't work on a Friday, and he was bouncing off all the walls in the town. He was drunk, and that wasn't Derek. And I spoke to him on Monday, and he said, you know, he said there's a few of the people on the rank sort of winding him up and that, and, you know, the guy could have done without it.
Tuesday afternoon, June the 1st. The taxi rank, Duke Street, Whitehaven. After weeks of trouble on the rank, Derek Bird is once again accusing other drivers of queue jumping and stealing his customers.
Well, we'll take runs off the back of the rank. Somebody comes up to your car, you're supposed to send them to the front of the rank, but you don't, you just have to take them.
What really happened on that sunny morning in West Cumbria? 12 people were shot dead, and another 25 shot at or injured. Eyewitnesses, survivors, family and friends pieced together the morning where small communities were left defenceless against a man running wild with a rifle and a shotgun. How did Derek Bird manage a 3-hour shooting spree in 3 separate towns? And why didn't the police catch him? Derek Bird had lived all of his 52 years in West Cumbria. After school, he became a joiner at the Sellafield nuclear plant. He married and had 2 sons. But in the early 1990s, his marriage broke up, and he had to leave Sellafield after accusations of theft. He'd spent the last few years living alone and working as a taxi driver.
Derek Bird was a quiet guy. Kept himself to himself. You know, he's a nice guy. He's a pleasant guy. He's not violent. He's not overly aggressive. He just plods along, gets on with it.
From a decent family and in a decent and very beautiful neighbourhood. I was upset at the photograph that was put on the television at first because he looked like a thug. And he wasn't a thug. He was a reasonable lad who went about his business, apparently, in the right